Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Can everyone hear me? If you can. Can people hear me? Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Can everyone hear me? Can just someone just chat to say yes, we can hear you? Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. It appears that people can hear me now. Thank you very much for joining us on this MAB webinar. And in today's topic, we are going to be talking about Iraq living the abyss. So we have a distinguished speaker today. So this is a MABinar series on world events, and you'll be glad to know that previously these talks were delivered in Arabic, but this is going to be delivered in English today. So what the purpose of this webinar is to look at the recent events that have shaped Iraq over the last prior to the Second Gulf War and up until now. So the webinar aims to make sense of the last decade and provide some insight as to how we arrived in the current state of affairs in Iraq. So I'll just introduce the speaker. He's Assistant Professor Ahmed Rushdi Abdullah, and he's the Executive Manager of the House of Iraqi Expertise Foundation. Dr. Ahmed is a regular participant and contributor on many media shows concerning the Iraq issue, and he has appeared on the BBC, Al Jazeera, and CCTV, the Chinese news network. He is an NGO specialist in media and politics in Iraq, and he is based in Baghdad. So without further ado, I'll now pass you on to Ahmed.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Today I'm going to talk about what's happened in Iraq, starting from so many, issuing so many things, and hope at the end you're going to be in benefit of exactly what's happening in Iraq and all of the region. First, let me introduce my slideshow. Just a minute. Bismillah. So, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Iraq living the abyss. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم يا الذين آمنوا اصبروا وصابروا ورابطوا واتقوا الله لعلكم تفلحون. As we all know that the ancient what we call it Mesopotamia, actually it is named like that because of the presence of the two ancient rivers, the Tigris and the Euphrates, and it's one of the it is the most ancient civilization in all of Earth, starting with the Sumerians, the Babylonian, the Assyrians, and the Akkadian. And as we all know, as a geography, is Iraq is presented in Asia, headed in the north of the Arabian Peninsula, and it's on the eastern direction. There's Iran. On the north, there's Turkey, and in the west and south, there's the Arabic countries. For the history, as we all know, I said, it's the ancient civilizations happening there. And also, what is very important is that Iraq always had so many enemies thinking that Mesopotamia is the best way to get benefit from, due to the multiple treasures that presented in. And Iraq also known to be known to contain so much ethnicity in it, starting from the Arab, Kurdish, Turkmen, and so on. Now, if we're going to talk about modern Iraq, which started in 1917 until 2003, it's the monarchy era. It's between 1921 until 1958. It's headed by Faisal Awal, who was the king of Syria first. Then he came to Iraq by the help of the British, of the British forces. Then Malik Ghazi, the second king of Iraq, who was killed due to a car accident, which has so many conspiracy theories on it, is that the British already target this person because he had so many things concerning get rid of the British forces from Iraq. And the third one is King Faisal al-Thani, who was killed during the revolution of 1958. After that, the first Republican era happened between 1958 until 1968, which is headed by two generals, General Abdul Karim Qasim, and then General Abdul Salam Arif, who started to manipulate Iraq as a republic, and it started to make another issue concerning Iraq must be had a central cause, which is getting rid of Israel and liberating Palestine. Then the second Republican era, it's between 1968 until 2003, headed by two persons, Ahmed Hassan Bakr and President Saddam Hussein. Now, to this introduction, actually, it's very important to know something, is that the monarchy era is presented by two major things. Number one, economical settlement. There was a very good stability in the economy, and also improvement in the development, especially in the infrastructure, building institutions, try to manipulate Iraq as the first country in so many areas, especially in education. But the second thing is that there is unstable political process inside Iraq. This is the two distinguished, or let's say the most important characterization for the period of monarchy between King Faisal Awal until King Faisal al-Thani, until the killing of King Faisal al-Thani. The Republican era, actually, it is headed, or let's say characterized by also two things. There is political stability, especially after 1968 revolution, headed by the Ba'ath, and it's not a real stability because it is headed by one party. The second thing is that all these years, starting from 1958 until 2003, Iraq didn't have a real stable economical situation. Now, what's happened after 2000, what's happened during this period is that Iraq actually entered so many, let's say, adventures headed by Saddam Hussein, especially the Iraqi-Irani war and the invasion of Kuwait, until reaching 2003. Now, 2003 actually, sorry, in the period between 2003 until now, Iraq actually living their base. There are so many slopes happened. Sloped one, it's from 2003 until 2006. It's characterized by disintegrate the Iraqi army and the security forces, built a new political process based on sectarian quotes, beginning of Sunni armed resistance, rebuilt security forces without the presence of the Sunni in it. Now, these 3 pictures actually showing exactly what's happened during this period until 2006. From the slope 2 is actually between 2006 until 2011. It is manifested by ethnic war. Iraqi monthly casualties raised to more than 1,000. Al-Qaeda starting to targeting everyone. Awakening groups in the Sunni area established there. The Maliki get the first round. The SOFA agreement, which is signed between the Iraqi and the American governments to withdraw the American forces, and at the end, the withdrawal of the American forces at the end of 2011. Now, the slope 3 is between 2011 to 2015, or until now, which is also seen by Al-Maliki second round, increased number of detainees, especially in the Sunni detainees, to approximately 30,000. The presence of Al-Hirak, which is a Sunni movement against Al-Maliki government, the presence of ISIS, or the beginning of the armed movement named as ISIS, the corruption that it has been opened widely by Iraq, lost billions of dollars. And at the end, what we're hearing now about reforming that Mr. Haidar al-Abadi is doing in Iraq, which is until now headed to the economical issue, not real political issues. Now, Iraq actually is headed by 2 main agendas: the Western agenda and the Eastern agenda. The Western agenda actually need Iraq to be a hybrid state, which means it does not really have the capability to defend itself, to try to get used from its resources, and at the end, to maintain its capability against any aggression that happened to Iraq. And also, what Western agenda did is that fabricating ethnicity, and which is not actually, it was not obvious during all these periods from modern Iraq, until the Americans said that, no, you are Sunni, Shia, and Kurds, and Iraq must be split on that issue, causing at the end a new Iraq with a new ethnicity balancing to measure or to maintain Iraq on ethnic issues. And also, the most important thing, the third most important thing, is that the permanent need to the external power. And actually, the Americans withdraw in 2011. Now, the Americans are anxiously want to reback to Iraq. On the same time, they want the Iraqis to tell them, go back, please. And believe me, the Iraqis actually want the Americans to come back because of the most important threat, which is ISIS, and also because of the presence of the Iranian interfering in Iraq. The Eastern agenda, which is headed by Iran, actually is based on 4 things: exploitation of a certain ethnic group; secondly, control every important hinge in the state; thirdly, swallow every state resources; and also at the end, adore to support other regimes and militia in the region or in the area, in the Middle East. Which means that Iraq is between these 2 powers, and actually the Iraqis are the victims of these 2 powers, headed by displacement. Until now, we have about 3 million people displaced from the area that controlled by ISIS, and also we have corruption, which now Iraq actually is suffering from a huge economical crisis, and at the end, Iraq actually does not have a real army, but instead have a militia fighting ISIS in the name of the Iraqi army, which is Al-Hashd al-Shabi. Now, at the end, Iraq actually does not support it until now. It is not supported by either an Arab project or an Islamic project. Neither Arab or Muslim countries have the idea how to support Iraq, how to stand to Iraq, how to make a positive infiltration, or let's say positive influential tactics or processes inside Iraq, just to stop the other infiltration or the other influential tactics that happened during this 13, 14 years by Iran. Now, the vanishing of the Arab and Muslim project made us as Iraqis want to say exactly what's happening, want to know exactly what are they doing. In the last conference happened in Doha, actually the Arab discussed every matter that happened in the region, Yemen, Syria, Libya, and so on, and they didn't manage to tell us exactly what's their project to Iraq. Now, Iraq, when it is destroyed in 2003, the whole area at the end destroyed and get their share from suffering. Even the Gulf state now, especially Kuwait. Now, it's supposed to be the Arab countries and even the Muslim countries have their own project to stop, or let's say to support Iraq against any other influential powers, either Western or Eastern, just to try to stop what's happening in their own countries. And instead that the Arabs actually doing the opposite. They are starting to extinguish fires near them and let the fire burning all of Iraq, which is, I think it is very wrong. At the end, Iraq is actually does not have the real capability to fight either ISIS or to stop the infiltration, the Iranian infiltration. So what we need now, actually, from any person that he's Iraqi or Arab or Muslim, three main things. Number one, prioritize Iraqi case in every regional or internal or international solution that happened to the area. Secondly, support real reforming action, which means that we must really fighting corruption and also remodeling the political process, which is based on ethnicity. At the end, dividing Iraq, it is not the solution that it will stop what's happening to Iraq, and also maybe it will be the fire that will split other countries other than Iraq. Thirdly, I think that backing up Iraq as a state of a major crisis in the area by keeping up all the details upfront as information for everybody, it's very important. That's why what's happening now in Iraq, actually, it's very important to everyone to know exactly what's happening there, first, and secondly, push every effort going forward for reforming the political process, the economical situation, and also to help Iraq to fight ISIS in a way that it's an Iraqi front, not an ethnic front, and on that way only, maybe we can end up what we call it ISIS and any threat, especially the infiltration of other forces, Eastern or Western agenda. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Ahmed. We are now going to be taking some questions, if you have them. So if you can type your questions out, and Dr. Ahmed will be happy to take them and answer them. So if anyone has any questions, but maybe I'll start off with the first question.
Yep.
So the recent nuclear deal with Iran and the US, how do you think this may influence events internally within Iraq? And do Iraqis, obviously it depends on their kind of ethnic and sect, but do they view this positively? Do some of them view it potentially quite negatively? What is your view on that?
Well, a nuclear deal with the states, actually, it's one of the important issues that it will help Iran to get more power in the area. But at the same time, it's still concerning a deal between the Democrats and Iranians. And eventually, the Republicans are getting the majority inside the Congress. And maybe it will go forward that a new blockage will happen. That's what now telling us is that there is another blockage against Iran. It's concerning human rights. Now, the nuclear deal actually stopped the economical blockage according to the nuclear efforts that Iran want to. But at the end, there is another blockage named as the human rights. Now, as an Iraqi, actually, I have two things which I think is very important. Number one, there is a state other than Israel will get the nuclear power, which is, I think, is very important. Secondly, is that if there is a second state get the nuclear power, it means that the Arabic states must have also nuclear power, according to this deal. At the end, balancing these issues in the area, maybe it's the concern of the international community, but at the end, if Iran will have the nuclear power, it will be a very ambitious way to the Arabic countries will do something else, do the same thing with what's happening with Iran. But even the nuclear deal have so much hints that it will go forward, that it can be used by the international community forces against the regime in Iran. That's why now the parliament, in the Iranian parliament, made a committee that is specialized in dealing with this deal, this agreement with the international community, because they now the Iranians saying that even with this deal, we are not very convinced that we will not be targeted. It means that the political process, actually, it's a long way of political process concerning the powers in the region. At the same time, we all know that the China and Russia backing up the Iranian in this deal, which means that Iran actually fighting instead of Russia and China to have the nuclear power, and also to make sharing in the area with China and Russia. That's why the foreign minister, the Saudi foreign minister, went to Russia and talked to Putin about how to deal with this issue, especially that Iran already make the deal with the states. But until now, we don't have the real agreement. The agreement until now didn't managed to be accepted by the Congress, which is also a very important issue.
Touching on that, so are you saying that if we have a Republican president in 2016, the deal could be off completely?
Or can be modified in another deal or another type of blockage, which is the human rights.
I see. Mm-hmm. We have another question. So the question says, what is the view on the division of Iraq into a federal state?
Sorry?
What is the view on the division of Iraq into a federal state? So I assume we're talking about, I mean, the Kurds have de facto autonomy, but maybe the other parts of Iraq being split up into kind of federal regions in much the same way as the model that the Kurds have. What is the view within Iraqi society? And is it likely to improve the situation? Will violence likely drop, or is it just a recipe for partition?
Well, the federalization of Iraq, actually, it's supposed to be a constitutional right. We are talking legally. It's a constitutional right. Now Al-Basra, as a city, as a governorate, made an application to be separated, to have an Aqlim Al-Basra, and the committee, the election committee, which is responsible for such issue, accept that, and maybe there will be some voting about this issue. But to speak on reality, the federalization, or let's say asking for Aqlim, especially the Sunnis asking for Aqlim, headed by them after what they saw from the central government. At the end, more than 3,000 detainees, so many execution judgments happened to innocent people, between brackets Sunnis, and the Iraq made his demands that you must stop what's happening to the Sunni areas, try to rebuild our cities, try to manage to get released for the detainees, and so on. All these issues, actually, it's not a real demand for Aqlim. I think it's a reaction for the action done by the central government. This is first. And secondly, if we're going to talk about really what's happening if we're going to split Iraq or make so many territories, Kurdistan, Sunni, Shiite territories, and so on, who got all of the resources, which can build the state? Frankly speaking, the Sunnis does not have a real thing on the ground. There are talks about gas, there are talks about oil, there are talks about so many things, uranium, and so on. But on the real thing is that it needs money to all these treasures, to all these things, that it needs money and real connections to the companies to come to the Sunni area and to dig up, targeting oil and gas. So the second issue is the economical issue. The third issue is more political issue concerning the regional area. Now, if the Sunnis has an Aqlim, it means that there is another Sunni country, or let's say there is another Sunni territories, which is in Syria. And now we are talking about Sunni Iraqi, Sunni Syrian headed to Israel. It's an open front headed to Israel, or maybe to Lebanon. This is geography, and I don't think it will happen on that way. That's why I think everyone, except the Sunnis, everyone is asking for one Iraq. Maybe one Iraq because they want weak Iraq. And one Iraq, weak Iraq, it means that it is possible to have so many things from the prime minister in Baghdad. That's why when Kuwait start to something called Mina Mubarak, they didn't accept any.
Sorry, what does that mean?
Mina Mubarak was established in I think 2003 or 2004. It's a reaction against an action happened to Iraq, is that Iraq gonna build something called Mina al-Faw al-Kabir, which is a competition to Dubai, because Faw is in the south of Iraq. It is the deepest point in the Arabian Gulf, and so on. So what's happened is that if this port already let's say established in Faw, it means that it's gonna make a competition to all of the area, to all of the Gulf area. What's happened is that Kuwait announced that they're gonna build another port, seaport, and Kuwait already has 3 seaports. So why the 4th? Because they want to stop Al-Faw seaport. And after that, they went to the Maliki, make negotiations with him, and they told him, we're gonna stop what we are taking from Iraq. as a compensation to the war. Instead, we want you to stop the project of Al-Faw seaport. He accepts that. So on this way, if you have a weak person in Baghdad, it will be easy to negotiate with him. Instead, if you have Aqlim, which means that you're going to negotiate with the central government and also to the Aqlim governments, the Kurdistan territories government, the Sunni territories government, the Shia territories government. So on that concept is that unified Iraq is very important to all of the countries around Iraq. Just as I said, on a political view, even on economical issue also, at the end, Iraq is still weak state, and it can be managed in all of the crises that happen in the region.
Okay, thank you. I've got a question here. There's been a recent demonstrations due to corruption. In Iraq, there was, I think, one of the hottest summers ever on record. It was, the temperatures were well into the mid-50s, even late 50s, and with the population receiving as low as 7 hours of electricity a day. There was mass demonstrations across Iraq over the poor performance of the politicians on the service they provide. Is this going to leave a legacy or any kind of long-term impact on the government to stamp out the mass scale of corruption that is there, or is this just something that, do you feel this is just something that's happened during the summer and it will pass and it will be business as usual in the next few months? Or do you think, or are these demonstrations the signs of things to come?
First of all, these demonstrations actually, one of the awakening movements happen in Iraq. And actually, it is connected to the Iraq, the Sunni Iraq that happened before 2 years. The demonstrations demands is actually to stop corruption and to modify the political process, which headed by the National Coalition, Al-Tahaluf al-Watani, the Shia National Coalition that end with the so many crashes in Iraq. Now, all these demonstrations is asking for to stop corruption and to reform the government. Until now, nothing's happened against the corrupted persons. Now, what Mr. Abadi did actually is vanishing or demolishing positions that it's supposed to be taking so many money from the budget, from the whole budget, like the vice president positions. But on the constitutional base, it's not his right. He demolishing his deputies, maybe it's legal, but acting as not prime minister of Iraq, acting #1 in Iraq, and dealing with the vice president positions in this way, actually it won't be accepted on a legal base.
Okay, but what's about? Is this a start of some kind of real mass movement, or is this? I mean, because what it appears to be is that the government of Al-Abadi is just doing a few cosmetic changes to, let's say, appease the real sense of anger amongst the population of Iraq over the poor performance of the government.
Yeah.
Is this likely to have any long-term impact on the sort of direction of the government? Will there likely to be more professionals involved in the government rather than this sectarian quota system? Are we likely to see an improved performance and levels of services for the populace at large, or again, is it just a situation just too fragile, too unpredictable, and it's a week in Iraq is a very long time. Things change very, very dramatically. So do you see? So in the long term, what do you think is the long-term impact of these demonstrations?
What you said about all these demands, actually, it's not happening. This is first. Secondly, what I've heard is that there are two scenarios for this. What's happening in Iraq for the demonstrations. Number one is that the West actually had some, let's say, some interest in these demonstrations. There are so many talks that the British and the Americans are supporting such demonstrations against what's happening in Iraq. And at the end, it is a way to stop the Iranian influentiality inside the Iraqi government by targeting the corrupted persons and also the ministers and the characters that already backed by Iran inside the Iraqi government. This is a scenario. The second scenario said that no, it's not like that. There are some blocks, let's say secular blocks, made a huge movement in Iraq against what we call it the Islamic failure to build an Iraqi state. And this bloc is supported and it tried to enter the whole diagram of the political process in a way that it's going to modify the powers inside this inside the political process, which means that getting equal, or let's say balanced, between the secular bloc and the Islamic bloc inside Iraq. And all what we called that demands from starting from package 1, ending with package 3, is the whole issue is only propaganda, that these two scenarios actually sharing these things. On the ground, it's still electricity is only for, I think, 4 hours in Baghdad.
That low, 4 hours.
Yeah, and still it's very hot. It's still, there is no one, until now, no corrupted person get into the judiciary system. There is no real, let's say, judgment for what's happening after the report of Mosul. You know, the report of Mosul made so many judgments on so many people. Number one, Mr. Maliki. But until now, there is...
Sorry, for the benefit of our listeners, this was the report that was recently published by the Iraqi government, which was an inquiry into the events that led to the fall of Mosul.
By the committee of the parliament.
By the parliamentary committee, yeah. For the fall of Mosul to ISIS or Daesh, and what were the events, and which individuals should be implicated in this. So sorry, yeah, I'm just putting some context to.
So this report already, it's supposed to be gone to the judiciary system, and yeah. It's supposed to be, there will be so many acceptance for accusations for the listed for about 200 persons inside this report. Number one, just I said, number one, Mr. Maliki, but is that what's going to happen really? No one knows. There are so many talks that Mr. Maliki will not be accused because he's a vice president, so he's immunized. And the vanishing of the position of vice president is not the authority of Mr. Al-Abadi. It's a constitutional authority. At the end, what we're seeing now is actually a modern way, or let's say another way of conflict between the Western power. It's my idea, is that it's conflict between the Western power and Iran inside Iraq.
I see. Okay, and another question. In terms of what has been topical in the news recently is the appearance or the presence in the last year or so of Daesh, mainly in Mosul and parts of Salahuddin province, and recently in Anbar province, where they managed to capture Ramadi a few months ago. But also within that time, they lost Tikrit within the last few months. Now, the phenomena of Daesh in Iraq, because of the aggressive sectarian policies that the Sunni community had complained about specifically under the Maliki government previously, and which led to the circumstances of the rise of Daesh. Do you feel that as a phenomenon, Daesh is going to be here to stay for a while, or is Daesh hemorrhaging internally in Mosul? Is it going to be around for another 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years? What is the current thinking on this?
Well, let us agree between us for, let's say, a real definition, or a definition that can describe Daesh on an appropriate way. Daesh is a group, an armed group with an ideology, and we must add a moving armed group with ideology, which means that you cannot fight Daesh if you don't have an ideology competitive to the Daesh ideology. This is first. And secondly, it does not mean that Daesh get out of Tikrit that they lost Tikrit. Why? Because they are a moved armed group. It's back and forth, back and forth. This is how they fight, and this is the street fight actually. What's happened in Tikrit is it's happened with the support of the coalition air forces, or let's say air attacks. Now, before 2 days, Daesh actually get again inside Beji and took Beji. At the same time, now the Iraqi forces and even the Ashar, even the tribal forces, tried to push Daesh in Ramadi, just into the center of Ramadi, to the center of city of Ramadi, and they cannot do something like that. At the end, Daesh has not only weapons, has the motive to fight against the others. Why? Because the others already split it. They are Sunni Shia, they are tribes. There is nothing called Iraqi army actually, because who are the soldiers actually fighting is mainly from the Hashid or the tribes or the Sunni tribes. The real army, the real Iraqi army is not presented actually. One of the biggest corruption events happened to the Iraqi army, the bringing ammunition and airplanes to the Iraqi army. So what we're talking about Daesh, Obama said it will take about 30 years. I think he's correct, because he's thinking
really about 30 years to fight this ideology of Daesh.
Yeah, because you need, if you want to fight the ideology, you need 30 years. But the most important thing that now the Sunnis actually learn the lesson. They are saying to the Iraqi government, and also saying to the Americans, saying to the whole world, I want guarantees to rebuild my city, to reinforce me inside the political process. And these guarantees are not from the Iraqi government, from the international community, to fight Daesh. And what's happened in Amriyat al-Fallujah, they are, it's only, I think it's now a year and a half fighting Daesh until now. Daesh, they entered Fallujah, they entered Ramadi, but until now they didn't get entered to the Amriyat al-Fallujah. Why? Because the people of Amriyat al-Fallujah convinced that if they're gonna allow Daesh to enter their cities, they're gonna kill, they're gonna be killed, they're gonna be slaughtered, and they will be displaced persons, displaced individuals in all of Iraq or maybe outside Iraq. That's why they are fighting for a year and a half with the leadership of Faisal Isawi against Daesh. And until now, the Daesh didn't manage to take over a small town. Why? The people inside are together fighting Daesh. So the magical prescription actually is that unity. And unity, it means that Sunnis must share power inside the political process. Accepting sharing power.
For instance, Iran within the Iraqi government is, as we know, is enormously influential. And what guarantees are there for the Sunnis to be able to have any real influence? Would it be like before, where they come in the government and their participation becomes in effect pretty much meaningless because they can't do anything in government. And with Iran, the shadow of Iran over Iraq, is that realistic?
Yep, and that's why the Americans said once, we didn't see any real intention from the Iraqis to fight ISIS. Actually, he's pointed to the Sunnis, because the Sunnis learned the lesson well. If I didn't have the guarantees, I will not fight Daesh. And if you give me the guarantees, and I fight Daesh and get victory, and you retreat your guarantees, Daesh will be in the desert. In seconds, they will be inside the cities again.
Yeah, you go back to square one.
So this is the main issue. It's a gambling, actually. It's a gambling issue between the Americans and the Iranian on their relying on the Sunnis. Why? Because now the Sunnis already lost so many things, and they are not interested to fight Daesh, actually, unless they will have real guarantees from everyone, and it will be implanted after the victory against Daesh.
Okay, there's another question here. I mean, obviously these are very depressing issues to talk about inside Iraq, and unfortunately the Ummah is full of depressing scenarios. So a question here says, how should we prioritize where all these issues unfolding in the region? So you have the ongoing issue of Palestine. And Syria is a big tragedy happening next door, and then there's a situation in Yemen. What is the way out? I mean, we can't look at Iraq just as one country, as if all of its neighbours have nothing to do with it. In many ways, this is all interrelated. If there is the will to solve one, I think a lot of these other regional problems will be solved. What is there anything on the horizon here in the next 10-20 years, do you feel that could be used to solve some of these issues? I mean, Arabs often will point the finger and say, well, with Iran being there, these tragedies will only increase in the near future, because it has imperial ambitions to dominate the region, and it's using its proxies to cause havoc in the region. What is your take on that? And is there any light at the end of the tunnel?
Well, let's describe the region as what we call it as a triple three, which means that in Syria you have the government, the opposition, and Daesh. In Yemen, you have the government, the Muqawma, the resistance, and the Houthis. In Iraq, you have Daesh, Al-Hashd, the government. The government.
So for the benefit of our listeners, Al-Hashd is the Shia militias.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Now, this is the way, and even in Egypt, you have the Nizam, the regime, Al-Ikhwan, and also Daesh in Sinai. So, which means that all the area actually is in crisis. And what's happening is that they are not the powers in the region, Iran, Turkey, and even the international community, even Russia and China. They are not trying to solve the crisis. Instead, they are trying to managing the crisis by making this triples. Now, according to that, why I said prioritize Iraq, make Iraq number one as a crisis, because the triple idea between Hashd, Hukuma, Daesh, there is actually no way you're going to stop this until the Sunnis entered this plan. Entering the Sunni in this plan, in the political process, and also in the armed forces, will make a way for the Arab and the Muslim to try to stop the flow of disaster of what's happening in the area, starting from Iraq. Because Iraq in 2003, the destruction of Iraq in 2003 actually transferred the flame everywhere in the region. So stop the flame in Iraq, the flames in the region will be stopped. This is the idea. But if you're gonna try to extinguish the fires in Yemen and let Iraq on fire, it will be a long-term firing in Yemen. You will not have the cope to stop the fire there. You cannot stabilize Yemen until you have the power in Iraq to stop the Iranian influential, the Iranian intervention in Iraq. So this is the idea. Start to make Iraq number one. Try to solve the problems inside Iraq. You will have the problems inside Yemen. It will be stopped inside Yemen, and vice versa. That's why Iran actually, when start to let's say dominate in Iraq, the Iraqi government makes support to the Bahraini oppositions, and also makes support to the Houthis, and they made support to the Bahraini opposition by sending ships with arms, with weapons, which means that if you're going to stop something like that, if you're going to assist Iraq in a way that you're going to assist the Sunnis to share power inside Iraq, all these claims will be, let's say, you will be capable of stopping all these claims on Arabic and Islamic way. I mean, I'm talking about the Arabic and Islamic countries. When you talk to the Turkish people and you said, okay, Turkey does not have a project in the Middle East, Iran has a project in the Middle East, it's a fact. The Arabs does not have a real project in the Middle East, while Iran has a project in the Middle East. And in all these 13 years, Iran makes so many big steps inside the Middle East, while the others only seeing what's happening there. And only when Yemen gets controlled by the Houthis, then the Saudi Arabia take advantage of that and make an Arabic coalition against the Houthis there. Why? And why you are doing something like that now? It's supposed to be happened between 13 years by supporting the Sunnis inside Iraq, just to manage to share power inside Iraq and to stop the intervention, the Iranian intervention there.
Okay, I'm very conscious of time. We're about to, the webinar is about to come to an end. Is any final thoughts you'd like to share with our audience tonight on the situation in Iraq? Any final?
Well, final statement is that I think Iraq cannot be saved until the Iraqis unified, and until all the parts, all the ethnicities inside Iraq share power and also share interests to save Iraq. The role of Iraqis in London or in UK is very important, because
sorry, in what way? You say the role of people in the UK, of Iraqis and those who are concerned about the situation is very often. I mean, for myself, I find that I can make almost zero influence on anything, no matter how well I decided to campaign on an issue like this. In what way, in what practical way do you feel that the Iraqi expat and other Arab expat communities can have on the situation in their country of heritage?
I will not talk about political issue or economical issue. I'm going to talk about humanitarian issue. Humanitarian issue concerning displaced individuals. They are living in tents, and here in UK, easily you can make a campaign for the displaced individuals in Iraq, and it can be just putting stickers and distribute flyers in the tubes. I myself made a donation for £1 for Lewis, who had cancer in UK, and they start to call me, his family, and saying, we are very pleased that you donate £1. So when you are making stickers, distributing flyers, and make a donation for the Iraqis displaced individuals. I think it's a way to publicize this status. So people were going to ask why Iraqis are displaced, why 3 million are displaced, what's happening. It's the Sunni support. It's supposed to be they are supporting ISIS. So why they are displaced from their homes, and the flyers will ask the question and also answer it, because they are anti-ISIS and they are anti-fascism of the central government and they are anti-militia and so on, in a way that
so external pressure on the practices of the government to highlight the abuses there in effect. So this is the only real realm where living in London or living in the West, you can have some kind of influence. Creating pressure groups. In effect.
What I saw here is that there are so many institutions working from, let's say, 13 to 14 years to support their ethnicity in Iraq and in the region. Maybe money is the best way to support something like that, but at the end, they are people, they have intentions, they are directed toward their case. That's why we need people directed toward their case in a way that when electricity went down in Iraq and there is a major corruption in electricity, and in the tube of London, there is a sticker calling for stop corruption in Iraq by donation for a website that it is publicize everything about corruption in Iraq. It's another way. Maybe targeting Falah al-Sudani, who's a British citizen, and he stole about, let's say, $2 billion and he brought $2 billion here in London or here in UK. It's another way to publicize the Iraqi case and so on. The problem is that we don't have, let's say, I hope that we will have the right individual, the right persons, that they will have Iraq as a case, as a real case, and start to knock doors, do their way, do everything that they want to do to save Iraq, and at the end, Iraq will be very grateful for them.
Thank you very much. We're out of time now, and so thank you very much, Barakallah Fiq, Dr. Ahmed Rushdi Abdullah. And thank you everyone for joining this MABinar session.
And sorry for my poor English.
No, mashallah, alhamdulillah, that wasn't an issue at all. I can assure you. So we'll be bringing future MABinars in the next few weeks. Stay tuned, inshallah. And we'll see you soon, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.